Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's That One Camera Guy, and it has finally happened. It's finally happened. I am no longer Team Sony, but Team Canon. Holy smokes, folks. It's funny. I made my other video, why I stopped, and I hope I wasn't trying to make it seem as if I was going to stop doing YouTube or anything like that. That wasn't the point of the video. And I did a one take on that. I just sort of spoke from the heart about it and everything. But I just wanted to stress that I wasn't, leaving YouTube. That wasn't the main idea. I just wanted to really show you and tell you how I felt at the moment about all this that was going on and why I stopped. But anyway, we're taking a look at this monster of a camera today. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. It is the Canon EOS R5, and we've got some more definitive specs that are out now for this camera. What in the world does it mean for Sony? What does it mean on the Canon side of things? And holy smokes, some of these specs have already sort of been out already. They're not all brand new or anything like that. They've been kind of on the radar for the most part. But this camera is clocking in 8K RAW, internal video recording up to 29.97 frames per second. That is mind-blowing for this camera and in the size. Now, we can already expect, we've got the Panasonic S1H, I think goes for about $5,000 or so with 6K. But this going up to 8K with RAW, it's insane. Let's jump back over here. We got internal video recording. We got 422 10-bit Canon log. And we also got 4K internal recording up to 120 frames per second effectively, with also Canon log 10-bit 422, no crop in 8K, and 4K video capture using the full width of the sensor. There's an asterisk mark there, so there's a little more going on. Dual pixel CMOS autofocus available in 8K and 4K recording modes. The one thing that Canon gets criticized a lot for is the fact that you always lose something, but it looks like they're not doing that. It's a Canon first with 5-axis in-body image stabilization. You remember Canon, they never ever wanted to do that for you. They never thought that was necessary. They thought using it on the lens level was better to have stabilization, but it looks like the pressure's there for them to do it. And now they've also got CF Express and UHS-2 as far as options. Honestly, it would have been better just to make it consistent, but it's fine that they have the secondary option for the SD card. All right, my thoughts on this. This was going to happen. And I'm perfectly happy with it. I don't have any qualms about it. I think it's great. We've all sort of been waiting for this to happen. Those of you that are, fans of Sony, or you have Sony cameras, or you even came from Canon, Sony took advantage of that time frame and jumped into mirrorless. Now, I'll say that this camera probably wouldn't exist because of Sony. If Sony was never in the picture, this camera, this entity, would never have existed. So you definitely got to thank Sony in that regards, that this camera is even in development and in the process of being released at some point. I don't know when. But overall, in terms of package size, in terms of what this is doing, it is out there. It is out there. The cripple hammer, everything about it, just the way it looks like right now in terms of the specifications, which doesn't say everything, it's still up there. Now let's take a look at the actual video, because they got a video here from Canon. Let's take a look. And this is just a 3D video, kind of rotating it around. It looks like they got the 24105 on there, which is interesting. Because the 24105 is really just a very basic lens. I'm wondering where they're going to sort of position this camera. Some people say it's going to be positioned by the 5D Mark IV sort of realm of camera, but in terms of specs, it's ridiculous. We got mic, USB, HDMI, all that good stuff, headphone port. And look what they did here. They put the joystick in the back, what people wanted. They got rid of that stupid little sensor bar, whatever they had there going, which I didn't like when I tried it out. Pretty clean the setup. Looks like a very Very solid camera. When I tried out the EOS R, it was the same case. Very solid camera, very solid design. I just wasn't happy with the responsiveness of the camera in terms of it. But that was version 1.0, like the very initial version of it when I tested out the EOS R. So it could have changed at that point. But I'm just going to say that Canon isn't messing around anymore, in terms of the grand scheme of things. If they deliver on everything, the improved eye autofocusing, burst rate shooting, whatever it might be in this camera, which it looks like it's going to be able to do, considering you shoot 8K, it's going to be a crazy camera. Now, where is this going to fall price-wise? What is this camera going to be price-wise? What is it going to be valued at? If it's anything like Canon, this looks like a flagship camera. This doesn't sound like your typical camera. It sounds like a $5,000 to $6,000 flagship camera. I don't know if you remember, but I know everyone was harping on Canon a while back when they were starting to slow down. Now, granted, remember, Canon brought the Canon 1D Cinema with 4K recording in a DSLR. They were the first ones to do it. Then Panasonic, I think, came around. But they were the first ones to do it. And it was like a $12,000 camera. Now, it looks like if this camera does exist, in my mind, it seems as if they're doing that thing again where they're flexing their muscles and they're saying, you know what, we're the top dog again, that we can deliver a solid camera. And it looks like they're doing it right now with this particular specification. Granted, again, how it's going to operate, nobody knows exactly yet. But just from how it looks, it's insane. The price point is going to be a big deal. If Canon all of a sudden says this is going to be a $3,500 camera, probably right around the price range of their Canon 5D series when they usually come around, this will be a very, very interesting competitor to Sony. It's going to rock the floor. You already know I shoot Sony. I came from Canon, left Canon. I remember making a video about the 5D Mark IV and why I was so disappointed in that camera, how it was lacking so many features. And I guess finally they grew up. It looks like they grew up. But we'll see what happens with the price. So I have two situations here. If this ends up being like a $6,000 camera, people are going to complain, right? But there's nothing really out on the market that's providing 8K in this package size. Now, there's 6K with the Panasonic S1H, but 8K in this particular form factor with Canon and their particular ecosystem. Nothing, right? Sony has been really resting on their laurels, and it's a really interesting story about, what would you say, the Hare and the Tortoise, I guess that's what you call it, where Sony was just iterating model after model after model after model after model. A7, A7 II, A7 III, now we got A7 R4. And each time they were making some progressive leaps. And they sort of slowed down in terms of their innovation. They was like, hey, A7 R3, A7 R4, let's pack in more megapixels. Let's go ahead and add some eye autofocus in here and there. And it was very minor. And people brought it up, even with the Sony A9 Mark II. I even had my video about that. But it looks like this might be that changing point. Now, for me personally, I don't see myself leaving Sony anytime soon. I've just got the 400 2.8, so I'm pretty invested in that system at this point. Like, I'm not going to walk off of it anytime soon. But those of you that stayed with Canon, this is it. Kudos to you for sticking around with it. Or those of you that are not fully invested in Sony can see themselves moving back into the Canon camp. If this thing all pans out, if this thing is all she wrote, it's going to be a really, really fun time. And it's funny because, like I said, I was talking about the video, how I just didn't care so much about the camera stuff. And to some degree, I still don't personally think of it as a big deal, like, oh man, I don't have 8K video. But man, you know what? Those folks that are in this camp to have the opportunity to transition this direction, that's more power to you. I would love to have 6K, 8K, 4K 120, those options available. I would love to have them. There's cases where I would personally want to utilize them. So now the question is this: what the hell does Sony do? we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, like for how long for an A7S III, that we already have an A7 R4. So Sony's been really lagging on that particular department. And, you know, the way I've been looking at this right now, do you notice how Canon isn't shy to tell you the specs? It's almost as if they already know that Sony doesn't even have a chance against this camera. Like, that's how confident they seem to be able to come out of the door and say, we have this around the horizon. Granted, they might be saying it so that people don't leave their particular camp. But at the same time, the fact that they are pretty ballsy enough to say this means that they already kind of know what's around the horizon for Sony. I think Sony is not going to bring this out. I doubt they're going to do 8K. I doubt it. I mean, let me know what you think. If you personally think that Sony would even bring 8K to the table, I think they're not going to do it. I was thinking a really good 4K codec, maybe a RAW, maybe something, but Canon, I gotta applaud them on it. If this is where it's going, bravo. Because this will then have to force Sony to have to, you know, light that fire underneath them again and really push forward with the technology. This is insane. Again, price point, I don't know. Let me know what you think the price will be down below. Very curious about that. But this is some very interesting times. Now, the specs, again, are not all brand new. It's just now that it seems to be like this is it. Like this camera is becoming more real by the day. And when this camera comes out, we don't know. Could be a year from now. Could be by the end of this year. Who knows? The question is, A7S III, where are you? What are you going to do? What are you going to bring to the table? I still would just like a really nice 4K 60p. But now this camera is rocking 4K 120 frames per second. I would love that. I don't have any plans to switch. Granted, this is just as a joke. But bravo to Canon. You got to give it to them. If this camera comes out, it does its thing, bravo. Bravo. I'm just excited to see now what, Sony's going to do. What the hell is Sony going to do? That's going to do it for me, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button if you so care. And stay tuned for the next one. I'll catch you later. Bye.